So I completely change. All right. Morning here. Good morning. This is Educators Drinking Coffee, and I have special guest with me, Mr. Jonathan Geldmaker. Let me check really quickly. Let's see if we are going live because sometimes, um, let me see. See if we are live. Yeah, it looks like we're live here. Let me check on our Facebook. And if Facebook, let me see, we are. It looks like we are. So, with that in mind, again, this is our special guest today, Mr. Jonathan Geldmaker. We're going to be chatting about what we think school is going to look like come the fall. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Geldmaker.
Science teacher now at Pasquotank High School. I've been teaching for 5 years in the professional level, completing my doctorate in education right now. Specifically talking about in that program, talking about education and biology and things along that lines. I've retired twice from 2 previous careers, which has been really nice. My wife's a career changer, teacher. 2 daughters are teachers. A son was a teacher, but he's now moved on. And so we've enjoyed it. We do this because we enjoy working with students and the education platform. And like you were saying a few minutes ago, we really, really need to sit down and have serious conversations about where education is going, not just throw a lot of stuff out there, but we really need to sit down and have these conversations.
Yeah, we really do. I think because everything's changed. It's not. I mean, you know this. You think about when we were in school, when we started teaching, where we're at now. School has changed, and the one constant, has been. I mean, I think we still run our schools like, for the most part, like they were probably 50 years ago. But we got different folks, staff, different kids, different generations, and we have to teach things a little bit different. And I think maybe this opened our eyes to that, we can't keep teaching the same way we've been for the last 20, 30 years, or like I said, 50 years.
I think what we see now is what we saw in the 50s going into the 60s when we had Sputnik, the whole recorded in history, that spot. Yeah. I think now you're going to see this spot is going to be the second paradigm shift in education. It can't help but be that. And it's like you said, for the last 40 years, we've done this one experiment, and we know it hasn't been all that successful. And now we're going to have to move on to the next level of that major swap in education. And either we sit down and have fierce conversations. One of my favorite authors, Scott, writes that book, Fierce Conversations. Either we sit down and have those fierce conversations and open up the conversation in that great word that we like to use, collaborative. We need to open that up to our community stakeholders. We need to open it up to our corporations in our communities. And we really need to sit down with parents, teachers, and administrators and say, okay, how are we going to do this now? And we have to make that shift. If we don't make the shift, then we're going to lose probably 5 years of students.
Without a doubt. As we go on this morning, this is Educators Drinking Coffee. And so it's meant, just as a reminder to you and everybody, really about enjoying a cup of coffee, having a chat. Like I said, the topic today, just seeing how schools will look like. I love it when people stop by. Miss Kathy Smith, she's one of my former music teacher, awesome in Pitt County. She is also Mr. Taylor Moore. He is actually the school administrator. Appreciate him. And Miss Schuler stopping by, one of our colleagues currently. So I'm glad. Please make sure you guys comment on this subject. What do you think school is going to look like? And it's also going to look different. You teach biology. You're in the science field. What is it going to look like for, an ag teacher? What is it going to look like for a music teacher like Miss Kathy Smith with this virtual? Because, especially with music, it's performance based.
Exactly.
It's very different than yours. Um, Actually, even the way we're managing is going to change a school. The evaluation system is going to have a shift, because that this other new component is going to be, kind of big part of our instructional learning. So that's very interesting. It's one of the things I do, and you talked about all the stakeholders, parents, and I've been thinking about this more and more is, who has done online teaching, let's say it's successful for the last probably 10 years, colleges, universities. And I
Mhm.
think we need to partner with them, maybe that use them as a starting point of how they look to create, because how to create, I guess, how do you envision, translating? I know we did this so quickly, but now that I guess we have a little bit more time from the curriculum that you presented. Hey, Mr. Tripp, thank you for stopping by. Um, how do you envision like translating that now into pushing that up virtually, I guess?
Well, we have to, we're talking about these changes, but we have to come up with realistic changes that can be supported. Because I can throw out a whole bunch of really great ideas, but
Yeah.
if we can't support them, I mean, the first thing, and if anybody knows me, I've done so much research into this. First thing we need to do is we need to take the money that we're spending on statewide assessment, drop that 40-year failure, take that money and start a contracts with service providers, the good old cell phone service providers for the school district, create school district accounts so that we don't have teachers sitting in their cars next to the school trying to Wi-Fi. We don't have students that say, I can't get access, because we can open up a bank and say, here is I've seen this in the county next to where I'm at right now. You open up a bank and you say, here's your student account. These are the guidelines. It's just like, giving the student the Chrome. You say, here's
Yeah.
the guidelines, proper usage. This is what you have, so that we have that groundwork laid. After that, the sky's the limit, because like I know in Virginia, when I first started this study, the state of Virginia spends on testing, just testing, the model for testing to go online, they spend $41 million.
Wow.
State of Florida spends $318 million on that. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money to go back into the bank. Each
Yeah.
school, on an average understanding, will have to take about $250,000 out of their budget to figure on how to do statewide testing. That includes substitutes, the
Yeah.
little cardboard things that we put up there, all that other good stuff. Take all that money, put it into online usage, and we'll go from there. And that opens up the door. We stop with I got to have a packet for the student. How am I going to get the packet to the student? If they're a hurricane and it's a regional thing and they're flooded, how do we get to them? Now we have the whole big thing ready to go. And most of the time, and you come out of Florida, I've come out of Florida, we got the North Carolina coast. We know when those storms come through, within 6 days, cell phones are back up and operating. So kids don't lose that time. That's
Yeah.
the first core thing we have to do.
Yeah. I mean, connectivity, and accessibility, if we truly want to do this, because there is a level of, inequity, I guess, that is currently happening, and it will continue to happen. But you're right. You nailed it. You have a teacher that has to go to, a McDonald's because they have Wi-Fi, or go back to the school parking lot because they're Wi-Fi, and that is. And then you think about some of our kids who don't have a lot, and sometimes gas is precious, and
Exactly.
they can't be going to, we can say they can use our parking lot, our Wi-Fi near our parking lot, but the way, at least we can speak about our school and our district are, very rural, in Eastern North Carolina. You cover a lot of area, and it's really not feasible to be asking parents and stuff, and kids who can drive, to drive up to a certain point, like, because we may have a 50-mile radius, you know.
Mhm.
So the more we can push out, I know some districts are looking at, putting hot spots on buses and then parking them, kind of remotely, to at least help with that distancing. Hey, Miss Heather Sullivan, long time. She was a teacher when I first came to North Carolina, English teacher. Awesome to see she stopping by. Um, but but yeah, we got to think. That's one of the things, and I know the state budget, the House, the Senate are passing bills, and they passed the bill, and I know there's money included there for remote learning, and I'm sure accessibility. But you're right. I think that has to be one of the first components, if not the first component, because we can have this great plan.
Yeah.
But if the kids can't reach it, what has been your experience? And we're talking about last year. I mean, for next year, but tell us we don't want to use names, but any experience of any kid that, you've been trying to work with that has had that issue, and what are some roadblocks that, you've come across and things like that?
I've had probably 5 students that have serious access issues. Other ones are they're doing the McDonald's or whatever. And, it's kind of sad that the school district has to say, hey, we're going to send all our kids over to McDonald's, not to eat, but to use your Wi-Fi. So I've had several of those kids, students that, have done that. I'm really proud of my students this year because we started doing online. Maybe it was my psychic ability or whatever, but we started playing with it, and there was frustration levels, and it was good to see their frustration levels about what was taking place. But right now, I'm really super happy and proud of these students because I can say 60 to 70% of them have stayed on track with assignments. It's just the whole grading issue that has gotten a little fuzzy for them. And they're like, if I was still in high school, I'd be saying the same thing. I'm done. Okay. Woo, pull the cord. I'm out of here. I don't have to do any more. Summer started. I've got 3 months worth of summer. So I've been really excited to see, I've thrown some, if you set the bar high, I've always said this, if you set the bar high for high expectations for your students, you will be surprised when they surpass it. And I was really pumped when I threw out I thought, okay, they're not going to do it, about DNA models and stuff like that, or making for earth science, hurricane, things like that. I've seen some creativity. I never knew you could take spaghetti and make a hurricane model out of spaghetti before. That's weird. I was sitting back like, wow. And have the 3-dimensional layers of the storm and the intake and the outflow and everything. Cool. I was just sitting there going, off of spaghetti. I was like, good. So if you set the bar low, if you say, oh, these kids are never going to do it. Oh, you hear all the whining and complaining. That's not true. I mean, these students, I've been fortunate to work in 3 different states. And if you set the bar high, the kids will jump up there. So it takes us back to that point again. If you give them, we're one-on-one, computer to student, we gave them that tool. Now we need to support that tool, and they'll put it to use. Yeah, you're always going to have 10% that sit back and say, I'm not going to do it. Of course, we have 10% teachers and administrators that do the same thing, and we have those same policymakers that do the same thing. But you have a 90 percentile that say, no matter what, you give me the bar, and I'll go for it. And you know what? If you give me the opportunity, I'll jump over that bar twice as high, and I'll bring my friends with me because they'll say, hey, if Mr. C can do it, I can do it. It's that simple.
Yeah, very true. Let me just quickly, a couple people stopped by. Miss Tammy Albert. She worked with me in Greene County Middle School. Awesome. Cool. I'm not cool. I use that word because it was a unique situation. We worked together after a tornado hit our school, and we were in Modular Village. So appreciate her stopping by. Kelly Makepeace, administrator. Alan Wooten, a former teacher. He would be one great to actually one day talk to. He's an AP teacher, a football coach. Great to have him. And I've have here somebody kind of messing with me because of my Dolphins. Yes, I've been a lifelong, I wouldn't say lifelong. I've been a Dolphins fan since after the 1984 Super Bowl. I don't know. I guess I kind of felt bad for Don Shula and Dan Marino. And after that, I gravitated. I hate to say it, but I did pull for San Francisco that year. And they also, this is Educators Drinking Coffee. I said for this week, I'm drinking, and Mr. Geldmaker, it's called Café Sello Rojo. I've actually taken this to school. It's kind of like a gold and red package. It's really smooth. Are you drinking anything this morning?
Cran apple. My life support. I can drink that by the gallon all day long and be happy.
Yeah. But But yeah,
I read an article this morning in an educator administrator guideline, and this was something you and I have been talking about this, the model afterwards, but I had never thought about this. And one of the things that I think it was Dr. DeWitt who wrote the article, he talked about one of the things that we really need to look at hard is the emotional, psychological support that we provide, because we know human beings are social animals. We love to be together, communicate and all this other stuff. And with this social distancing and all these things that we're going to have to look at in changing, is we need to really enhance our mental health counselors, not only for students, but we need to look at for our staffing. And we also need to look at how we interface with the community and parents. There's a lot of things, and being sitting in some IEP meetings the last couple of weeks, you hear parents and you hear in the background of their statements the things that they are struggling with right now. Yeah. And education either changes or we're going to fail. And if we don't change, if we don't do significant changes, we don't take the whole model and say, okay, this is what we need to do. Somebody said to me, okay, so you got this big idea about changing things. I did morning shift and night shift in education where we had to split the school in half because of construction issues for 2 years. It worked successfully. But then they say, okay, Mr. Geldmaker, you got all these big ideas and stuff. How are you going to evaluate students, and how are you going to evaluate teachers, and how are you going to evaluate the school district? Not a difficult thing to do. Again, I am not a state testing liking individual at all. I think I cracked a tooth by saying that right now, bearing down. It's very simple. We look at the success rate of our graduations. We look at 6 months down the road where our students are at. We look at 1 year down the road where our students are at, and we go up to 5 years. We provide support all the way through that model, and we get them ready starting in middle school, 6th grade. Introduce them to the career things and all the things that go with it. My own children, I told them, your minor when you go to college, and I have 4 children, 3 went to college and 1 went into vocational training. And she's already retired. She took an early retirement and is doing great. So, I always say to people, don't base it on going to college or whatever. But you look at what they're doing in school. And I tell my kids, make sure your minor is something that you totally are going to enjoy, because 9 chances out of 10, as soon as you graduate, that's what you're going to be doing as your lifehood when you get out. I mean, that's just the way it is. So we can change the model. I mean, you take all that money that we've been wasting on state testing, and we know it was a waste because we had to change the SAT and ACT scores because they dropped 40% over the last 20 years. So we know that already. That's the colleges telling us that. And so we know if we change that and we bring in the things that, I hate to say this, when I was in school, we used to have all kinds of different resources that were there, and those resources went away. We're getting rid of the term transformational leadership, and we're going into instructional artistical leadership, which means now that you guys are no longer, what are your test scores? What are your test scores? What are your test scores? You're now saying, how are your students developing? What can we do to help them develop? Because not everybody is going to be in science. And quite frankly, I wouldn't want everybody to be in science. I would want some people, to have the most beautiful paintings that I can put up in my house, and even a Miami Dolphin sign that looks like that. And I can enjoy that. Or somebody that sings. I mean, I got 1,500 songs in my phone that I listen to all the time. And those are my support networks too. So we need to, I know one of your counterparts has talked about, we need to bring in the EMT medical side again. We need to bring in teachers. It's not Teach for America. That's that whole big program out there, but how we help teachers become
a recruiting system in a sense. And actually, yesterday I talked about this. Sorry to kind of cut you off, but
no.
One of the things I think, because you just made me think it's about options. And I reference this. I don't know when you were a kid what you wanted to be. I know when I was a kid, I knew from age 10 that I wanted to be involved in art, right? And my parents fostered that. And then I did it. I graduated with a BFA. I still worked at a bank because I needed income and tried to do some paintings to do this. But I quickly saw there was no way for me to sustain myself. But I also was coaching soccer at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I like this teaching thing. Um, and I said, I know art and I would love to share my experiences, what my knowledge and all this stuff. And that really, quickly merged into being an educator. And then eventually, becoming more of a geek in education. I'm like, there's things I don't like. There's things I like. There's things that I can see the potential. So then came the next phase, administration. But you mentioned, we all started, this is your third career, or third, fourth, you know what I mean? And for, I think this new generation, that's what's going to be. They're not going to be the traditional, you work here for 30 something years and you retire with one job. A lot of them hop. And I think we have to do that because that's the reality in school, is give them options, give them pathways. Of, I know European countries do this. They quickly kind of test kids and push them towards one area, the other area, things like that. We always talk about finding the strength in every child. And I think we have to find the tools to do it, to find it, and has still being able to find a good quality at general education, but then pushing them towards that. Because there are kids who you can tell have that knack of just hands-on, you know what I mean? And so and I think the collaboration, with community partners is very key too. You know what I mean? And I know these are going to be tough times coming up because the economy and, job and business closures, but I think we can still find partners to partner where kids can do apprenticeships. Kids can go, part-time to a certain location to learn whatever vocation, whatever it may be. I think we just have to give them resources, tools, opportunities.
Show them what it is. I was teaching in 2014 and 15. I was teaching nuclear science classes.
Oh, that's easy.
You think, okay, that's crazy. I'm still trying to figure out 1 and 1 is 2, but I took my kids to Surrey Nuclear Power Plant and Lake Anna Nuclear Power Plant in Virginia. Surrey's right up the road from Pasquotank. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, I was like, okay, my thought of what the field trip was going to be like with these 40 students was, okay, we're going to talk about nuclear power. We're going to talk about this, get all the stuff that goes with it. And the HR director, I was like super impressed. The HR director came out and talked to the students. They talked about nuclear power and the energy and what it does for the whole outlying community. But then she said, now let me talk to you about the careers that we have available here and that we are excited about bringing high school students in. Because if you come to us and you would like to work for us, we have the medical community, we have the environmental community, we have security. Of course, we have nuclear engineering, but we also have mechanical engineering. We have welders, we have engine repair individuals. They had virtually every position that you could possibly think of. And they said, all we ask for, we don't care what you do. And here we go again. We don't care what you do on that state assessment. What I care is, do you know math? Do you know science? And do you know English? Can you, of course, I'm not grammatically correct in all this anyway, but can you do those 3 core subjects? We'll send you to schools, very quality schools, not the power company school. We'll send you to the schools, get the training that goes with it, because not everybody can weld magnesium. I mean, up the road from P-Tank is the Norfolk Academy in welding, 4 years, and you can make $100,000+ once you complete that on unique welding. I mean, that's more money than,
they make
teachers make together, So they said all these things, and the kids, when they got done, they were like, I know when you get it was a great field trip. But every one of those kids were like jacked when they left there because they're like, that's crazy. I was like, yeah, you're right. I never thought about all the things that they were offering. Then we brought down, I was really fortunate. We brought down a guy from Pennsylvania, which was a bit of a haul, but he came in from the industry up in Pennsylvania, Harrisburg area. And he came in and talked to the kids about, again, I don't care what you do on that test. What I care about is what you're doing in school. How is your math grade? How is your science grade? And all those things. And those kids were like, I had 3 kids that ended up going up to that corporate community. And every one of them is now making 30 plus an hour, doing very good. They're still employed because the industry still has to work. They're doing the mask and the social distancing and everything else. But again, they didn't go to a traditional 4-year college program. They went a different way. And my principal from that, he said, so now how do you measure success? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. There is huge success right there. He goes, I really don't care about, he goes, yeah, I do care because I like my paycheck and my wife likes my paycheck. And, the accreditation factor for the school, and we're not this grade, we're this grade and all that other stuff. He goes, but look at all these kids. This exposure that we're doing for them makes me feel that we're being more successful as educators than anything else that we're doing.
We do. I mean, I think, and you brought it there, and I don't know about you, but I mean, I've been part of like college field trips, and I know we were talking about vocation, but one of the key things in one of my other districts is making sure kids have to envision themselves in wherever you expose them to. That's the other thing too, because I mean, like it or not, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of Hispanic kids just because of my background, and someone would literally have said, like, I remember when I was coaching, they're like, Coach, college is not for us. I don't see anybody looking like me. And I said, guys, actually, that's even more of an opportunity because institutions want diversity. And if you're not like the majority of the population, I said, there's going to be probably even more opportunities. So consider that. I said, when you're one of the first ones, I said, it's a great thing, and people want to help you. People want you to succeed because your success breeds more of folks coming in. Thinking about those resources, the options, and being able to, and one of the things I always allude to is, at least as of probably 4 years ago, I remember we did a field trip to the University of North Carolina, UNC Wilmington, and we took a group of Hispanic kids, and I took them there because they had at that time the largest Hispanic population of students in any North Carolina school system, college system, and I think it might have been 8%, but because of the group that I had, they had a club there that kind of greeted us and gave us a tour and everything. The kids, you can see the light bulbs is like, I can come here, and then they like the atmosphere, of all this. But, at the same time, we took a trip to UNC Chapel Hill, and great school, but the kids saw very few kids like themselves, at least the same group of kids. And that's when I realized, hey, they have to see kids that look like themselves. When we think about these industries, but you also have to tell them that's also where there's opportunity. Just because there's not many people like yourself, there is that opportunity when you're kind of unique like that. Getting back to, I know we've kind of deviated, and that's perfectly fine about what school is going to look like. But I want to get your thoughts about come fall, August, and it looks like now it's going to be August 17th when we come back. I mean, what are your personal feelings as far as how a typical day is going to be, or typical week?
I think we have to go to that one point again, and I've said this before, is we need to stop. We got our 10-month employees, which are our teachers, and right now we need to just wrap up. Say, okay, kids, enjoy this time, because the 17th rolls around. It can't be trial and issue, trial by fire. It can't be any of those things. Their students look to us, the education world, to set the standard so that on the 17th, day one, they know what day one's going to look like. They know we can tell them 2 weeks ahead of time, because we know that if you give somebody the information ahead of time, they'll process it, they'll complain about it, they'll do all the things that they need to do. But then on the 17th, we can start. Because I've heard some really fantastic models out there. I'm like, that is so complicated. There is no way that, first of all, administration is going to be able to follow that policy.
Yeah.
And number two, if you got teachers that are going, what? That's not going to work. So then you're going to have, administrators are going to be guaranteed jobs because they're going to be dealing with behavior issues where they say, okay, today's my A day. Okay, but I thought I was a B student, all these other things that pop into it. If we have to follow certain protocols that are coming out of the AMA and the CDC right now, and that's the other thing, that we have to have intelligent people that get engaged in that and have those fierce conversations about this. If we have those things, then the way we do business obviously has to change from day one. And the day I graduated from high school was the 6th of June. The 7th of June, I was in the Navy because there was no other choice for me. It was either do that and live and eat or not have anything. And one of the favorite terms they like to use is keep it simple, and there's a few other things on there.
Yeah.
But, if you keep it simple and basic so that I don't have to think about what my day is going to look like as a student, I know what my day is going to be like. Now I have to worry about what my teacher's teaching me, what I need to learn, and what I have to do to get my grade to be successful and graduate. So my basic thought is do split day, because if we only can have so many students around each other, then cut the day in half and say from 7 or 8 o'clock until noon, we have 50% of our population. And then from 1 to 4 o'clock, we have the other 50% of our population. The population that's at home or wherever they're staying at that time is online. We can still get the 7.45 hours that we want. They do online coursework. And when they're away from the classroom, when you're in the classroom, you can go over all that stuff. You can still knock out the 4 classes. Like in our case, we're block. So you can still knock out the 4 classes. You just adjust the time down because you're still doing the online portion. So it's not like I'm saying, okay, we're only going to be in class for 35 minutes now or whatever it's going to be, 40 minutes plus figure in lunch. And I think we got to look at that too. We do the breakfast in the morning and the lunch for the A session, the morning session, do the lunch, and we do a nighttime meal in the evening time or a snack or something that the student can take home. Before all this came about anyway, there were a lot of districts that were in the 4-meal program. When I was in South Florida, we came out of a 77% poverty rate. We were doing 3 meals, and they were talking about going into the 4th meal, which was a take home, takeout order like everybody's doing now. So that's an easy model. Now I've heard some complicated things like this week's going to be A, next week's going to be B. Okay, so what are we going to do with the A kids? Because, in this article I was reading this morning, one of the things that they were specifically talking about is why don't students do the online classwork? The 5 reasons that they don't do it. One of the reasons is they're the caretaker of the family right now. If I'm laid off and my child can get a job at McDonald's, because guess what? McDonald's is still running, McDonald's stuff. And they work there, and they may only be working $150 a week type of job. But guess what? That $150 is what's causing the family to have food on the table. So, we need to look at what are they doing on that. If I'm off for a whole week and then I come back, because we already know we have students that are caretakers for the family. We already know that we have those that, are watching the siblings, So if we make it very simple, not complicate it so that the student knows. And again, if we stop right now, and I know this drives people crazy. I can hear the policymakers in North Carolina, and the politicians going, who is that nut? Yeah, whatever. We stop right now. That gives us 4 weeks of professional development, of setting up the models, PLC, everybody going through trial runs, finding all the flaws, being able to let music teachers figure out how they can do music that halftime, allowing PE teachers to figure out, because these are all important things that they need our students to do. who's Mr. Roundtree and his firefighting guy,
Yeah.
making sure that they're doing their stuff. Biology, we need to go to the virtual dissection models and stuff like that so we can keep that going. I mean,
there's a lot, there's a lot, but I go back a little bit. That's why we also need those partnerships with the colleges, because they've taught a lot of these courses. Now, of course, we are talking about college level students, but at the same time, we need a starting point.
Exactly.
And whatever platform that we're using, and in our case, we're using Canvas. We need to find things that already been working, online kind of classes, utilizing Canvas, because that's all that we need. We said make it as easy as simple, because you nailed it too. If you're comfortable with the platform you're using and how to push things out, it's easier for you then to not have to worry about that and focus actually about the actual learning, the actual content itself, and how to get that information back from students, how to take the information from students and be able to get them to produce, to create. I think when we struggle with platforms, and because we did this conversion right now with less than a week, that was that's a tough thing to kind of, you have to work overtime, and I think that's where you talk about endless things, exhaustion from everybody. The one thing we knew was going to be an issue, and it really, I think it's been the hardest thing, has been the lack of participation.
Yeah.
And because if you don't have the students there to participate, what can you do? And so I agree with you. We have to have as much time as possible to think about that start date of August 17th. And I'm pretty sure Miss Meads, but don't quote me on that because I don't want to get myself in trouble. But I'm pretty sure it's August 17th. But hey, Miss Hurima, thank you for stopping by. A few others. My mom actually said hi. Miss Norman, one of our EC staff members. Thank you. And she's right. When it comes to teaching, you adapt, you improvise, and you overcome, because there's always going to be obstacles. But yeah, we need to really simplify things to the point where
you don't have to
time to become familiar with the tool. Because I tell you, I've been in classes where somebody is using a platform and the kids are like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know. That means not enough legwork has done in the beginning. And like you mentioned earlier, you guys are 10-month employees. We can't force you to come in during the summer. So in order to get you in, there's got to be a trade-off of some sort. And right now, money is an issue. We're not gonna lie. I mean, I'm sure without a lot of the state revenue, everybody's going to take a hit. From education to businesses to corporations, universities, whatever. So the earlier we get started, I think the better off we will be.
And you cannot bring, because you're still hiring up to the 17th or the 19th or the 20th. So you can't say, okay, all our teachers are going to show up a week before and we're going to show them how to use these platforms and they're going to be ready to go, because a lot of teachers, have never used that particular thing. They've been pencil and paper, and that's fine. But, you said something too. We think kids are tech savvy, but they know how to use a couple things on here. They're really good at that. But then when we start talking about Canvas and we start talking about Google Classroom, and I've, like I said, I kind of worked ahead with with a lot of my students that they were exposed to it, but yet there was still, again, that huge learning curve out there. And we can't, and that's one of the things I was really impressed about this article this morning that they wrote about was you need to give your students time to adjust to these platforms, because the district set out a survey that said, what are you using? Okay, now we're going to go with this. Okay, again, students may know that. Some students may not know that. So we have to afford them the opportunity to learn that. Because if I'm telling them, okay, I need you to complete the biochemistry chapters 1, 2, and 3, and I need this done and that done, and you need to give me a report on it. And the student says, okay, I can do that. How do I get to that?
Yeah. And we definitely have run into that.
Where am I at? I have no idea. My computer is not working. What do I do? You know, they don't want to admit that baby brother or somebody took it and pitched it across the room or whatever. Or they don't have the charger because the dog, you know, I've got a 100-pound German Shepherd that just chewed through an electric cord. You know, so we have all those things that are there. And then we forget, oh, science is the most important thing. I don't care about those other 3 classes.
Yeah.
You know? So, oh, by the way, and you know, I've sat in a lot of teacher lounge meetings and heard them say, well, I really don't care what they do in the other classes. Mine is the only grade that counts. So we've got to get everybody on board to make sure that we have, you know, we did this. This was a great idea. We said, we want to have virtual classroom time. Well, you know, my time was 10 o'clock. What's your time? Oh, well, I want to do 10 o'clock. Well, guess what? That doesn't work. So we set up a simple form. We say, science department, you're going to meet at this time. Math department, you're going to meet at this time. Administrators, this is my time that I need to meet with PLC, with teachers. This is the time, and I know this is the hard thing to hear, but this is the time where we say, honest to God, our students have, as soon as they found out about the 4th quarter grading, they said, see ya. So now's the time to say, okay, let's break into our groups. Here's the ideas we want to do. Let's get it all worked out before June, because just like you said a few minutes ago, 10-month employees, that's it. That's what you pay them for, and they're done. And, you know, there's some that are crazy that have nothing to do over the summer, and they're more than willing to work on things. But, you know, that's limited. And then saying the 17th of August, the start date, go back 10 days. And we may be doing this virtual meeting as teachers. How am I going to get that point across?
Yeah, you know, that is true. And you know, exhaustion, honestly, and I mentioned earlier, it's starting to set in on everybody. And if we extend this, you know, if they want to extend this through the summer, you got to have buy-in. And if people are exhausted, you know, it may be a great form and a great PD, but if you're tired, you know, it's just like your kids in your classroom. When they're tired, they've had enough, you know, those 4th period classes, you know, and the kids have had just about enough after 3rd period. It's hard to get them to just get re-energized. And we need a certain point of a break from, you know, we finish school, maybe get all this rolling, and then be able to have our somewhat back to normal summer, even though it's not going to be normal, away from school. Because, you know, after March 13, school got elongated the days. You know what I mean? So I think everybody needs, at some point, we'll need a break from just, it's almost like a digital break is really what we will need. You know, unfortunately, we may not still be able to go out and do things, but be away from this. But I'm going to have to probably, we've gone over. This is awesome, man. I appreciate it. We're going to have to do this again. And we'll have a topic, but who cares where we end up talking? It's just good talk to. I love everybody who stopped by. You know, Miss Meads. I actually have a cousin of mine back in West Palm Beach. Sebastian, thank you for stopping by. Really quickly, see who else. Miriam Alarcon. She's an interesting young lady. She was one of my, it's sad enough that I can't remember she was one of my students, but I know she was one of my soccer players. And she was a great young lady, hardworking. And I see her now. She is a friend of mine on Facebook, and really, again, talking about successful. And, you know, success is not defined by, I produce doctors, I produce lawyers. It's kids that can be productive citizens in society and have a good, you know, stable job, and, you know, they can provide for themselves, for their family. I think that's success. We've helped build, you know, through the kids that we've had, good citizens, you know, that are being productive to society. And I think that's, to me, that's when I feel like that's success. And then Miss Barcliffe actually stopped by, so I appreciate her talking by. And let me just kind of just finish with this, man. Yesterday I received an email from one of our students who's graduating, and it really touched my heart. And I'll probably I don't know. He sent it to me, so I'm hesitant to share it with the staff. But I'm like, this is why we do what we do. I don't want to discuss, the things that he said, but he said, I appreciate you were always willing to listen. You were a role model. I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. Maybe he got me on the good days or the good times, but no, but good young man that I really wish him the best. I know he'll be successful. Like I said, no matter what he ends up doing, he has a very good heart, and has great support. And it really made my day yesterday. Aside from the cap and gown, which was awesome, you see the kids, you can tell they were so excited to see us. I really like that. But this email from this young man, I really appreciate it. And I hate it because his parents actually came to pick up his stuff, and he wasn't there for me. But I made sure mom say, hey, tell him Castillo said hi. Maybe that's what spawned the email from him. But it is what we do. Like you said, we don't get paid enough, and those are the moments we have to cherish. When these kids feel like they have to reach out to you and thank you and want to see you, want to show you, and that's awesome. So I do again want to thank you for stopping by this morning. We'll have to do it again. And then we'll see what happens here in the near future, where we're at, how we're getting ready for the wrapping up this school year, and how we are, getting ready for the next year. So
exactly.
All right. So with that, I appreciate Mr. Geldmaker for showing up. All right, and I will see you probably Monday at our virtual meeting.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, not forget, tomorrow I interview an elementary student on her perspective of this whole coronavirus stuff. So tune in for that one. That's going to be pretty interesting. So I'm excited about that one. All right. Bye-bye.